Alright, welcome back everyone to another week for the WPF. I believe this is week number 5. I'm going to be recapping my prep and the replay, going through everything that happened. I apologize for this being a week late. Some IRL things are coming up in my life, so I've been kind of just prioritizing that, but finally getting to this. This happened last week at the time of recording this, and yeah. So why don't we just hop right into it. So this is our week 5 matchup for the World Pokemon Federation. We are against Techno. I believe we are 3-1 coming into this matchup, and he is 1-3. He's been a bit unlucky this season so far. A lot of his games really haven't gone his way. There have been some positions where he could have prevented some unlucky things from happening, but he kind of just let it slide. He kind of put himself in a position where he kind of couldn't afford himself any wiggle room. And so, knowing that, I go into this matchup kind of in a similar position where I feel like his team is so incredibly fast. And you can see it on the screen right there. It's Dragapult, Iron Treads, Terra Sneasler, Rotom Wash, Florges, the Dunsparce, Meowscarada, Talonflame, and Spidops. So this team is actually really fast. It has a lot of threatening speed options, and as you can see, my team is not that fast. It's Regieleki plus mono lower than base 100 mons. So I had to be very particular with my prep this week. I thought his prep could be super basic and to get the job done. I expected some leftovers, Spadef bulky Iron Treads with maybe knockoff Ice Spinner, the Dragonite. He could pack Rapid Spin, but I figured he'd have Stealth Rocks on it. And then Earthquake. And then Dragapult, it could have been a Darts, since Dragon Spam was pretty good versus my team, since he could handle Screamtail with just U-turning on it, or you could Hex it if you brought Willow Hex with Dragon Darts and Dragon Dance, or U-turn. Or you can spring Specs. Draco is relatively free if I don't have a fairy type, and then Shadow Ball is also pretty free if I don't have Braviary. So I knew I was in a tough position around Pult, and the only one that could really revenge it were a Regieleki with a stab, Terra Stab, that could actually revenge it, or a Scarfer like Annihilate for Samurai. So that was kind of my first impression, was I need something to revenge Pult. And then that I originally had Meowscarada and I dropped it. He happened to pick it up immediately after I dropped it. He dropped his Zarude, he picked up Meowscarada. Now we gotta face it, and it's gonna be a huge problem for us because he could easily run a Scarf set if he wants to use it to revenge a Lecky. If he's not too concerned about a Lecky at all, then he could just use a combo of Florges plus Treads, maybe Rotom Wash, depending on the type. And just use that. Meowscarada is not really threatened by a Lecky unless I have a super effective hit versus it. So a Fairy, a Fire, a Fighting, Ice, Bug, any of those typings that are super effective against it. So he could also just run Banded, which is pretty tough to switch into, but I'm generally okay with him running choice items, because if he locks himself into moves, I can use it as an opportunity to reposition myself or set something up. And then the other mon, so basically the mons I expected are just Pult, probably Specs, but it could be some Dragon Dance Dart set. I experimented with that. I kind of figured it could just be Specs here. It just forces the most pressure overall. Some Spadef leftovers Treads with some utility rocks. Setup Sneasler. It could be... I thought maybe it could be Banded as well if you wanted to use Scarf Meowscarada, but he could use some Banded Meowscarada with Setup Sneasler. But then I have no idea what the Sneasler item can be. It's really scary because if I lose my checks to it, it'll just sweep me. And there's nothing I can do about it. I figured he could potentially be Terra Ground. Allows him to hit Skeletors, Iron Hands, mainly. But then he could also be Terra Ghost. That would also allow him to hit Dirge. It would also give him allow him to basically run through Annihilate as well if he didn't want to use ground. It gives him the immunity to fighting moves. It gives him the immunity to extreme speed, which Regieleki and Dragonite both can carry. But both of those typings lose to priority on Samurott, whether it be Sucker Punch or Aqua Jet. He's Ghost or Ground. So it's mainly me being able to contain the item that he may have. So I have no idea what item he could be. He could be like Balloon. It could be Citrus Berry, which is the item I'm thinking he could be. I think that'd be the best item for a setup Sneasler set here. But yeah, basically covers it. And then, but yeah, and then I also expect him to bring Meowscarada, probably Bandit or Scarf. And then Rotom Wash is probably going to be some fast max HP set with like Will-O-Wisp, Volt Switch. He could run like screens on it. You'll see I kind of have a way to assess screens. And then Florges as his last spawn, probably with like leftovers if he wants to use it as another pivot to Alecki in case I have a type that is very good against Treads. Or he opts to run like Rocky Helmet if he wants to use it as like a Dragonite, Iron Hands, Samurott, Annihilate kind of pivot, which you could do as well. So, and Wash could also be Helmet for the very same reason. So, and he has Wish Passing to help kind of facilitate his Treads throughout the matchup. So that's basically what I thought. And so I'm going to just quickly go through the build because I went through an extensive amount of like theory mining, kind of going through sequences for myself. So this is probably the most amount of work I put into like refining my build. So I'm just going to cover kind of just what the build is and why I brought it. And then we'll just hop right into the match because kind of explaining the whole thought process of how I went around this build would probably take me hours because there were so many edits and like things I went through testing some things out in my head and in actual practice. So yeah, so the first thing I mainly wanted to do was figure out what Alecki type I wanted to have. So I went with Terra Grass. I originally I was considering things like Terra Fire to hit Treads harder. In particular, it would allow me to resist Moonblast from the Florges. Ultimately went with Grass. It gave me a better pivot into Rotom Wash, which I didn't have, and that was mainly because I originally had Screamtail on the build, but I ultimately dropped it, and you'll see that eventually. But I needed something else to kind of pivot into Rotom Wash while still giving me a neutral hit versus basically Treads and Florges. Now, Meowscarada can kind of walls this, but with my plan is mainly to hazard stack. His only removal is Defog Talonflame and Spin Treads. So I block Spin with Annihilate, and if he brings Defog, well, you'll see I have 2 Defiant users on my draft, so I can abuse people's ability to remove hazards. So yeah, I just ran Regieleki. It's Terra Grass, a lot of Spadef, and that's mainly for Florges. Florges cannot 2-shot me with Moonblast. I believe that is what the calc for. Rotom Wash. Hydro Pump doesn't like 2-shot me after like 2 sets of rocks or something. I expect him to click Will-O-Wisp, so I'll come in on a Wisp, and that's the main reason why I have Chesto Berry. Is there's no real way to heal this, and I figure he'll get up rocks eventually, and I don't have any removal because I'm just gonna deal with it. And kind of just force him to try to remove versus me, or just keep hazards up altogether. And that's mainly our plan. Get up hazards, chip down his mons like Meowscarada and Dragapult, wear him down. Obviously, it's really hard to revenge those mons, especially if Meowscarada was Scarfed, which I found through testing was probably the most annoying thing. But Bandit can also put on a ton of pressure if he has a reliable way to contain Regieleki. So we just ran Thunderbolt, Terra Blast Grass, Volt Switch, and Rest with Chesto Berry. And through sequences, I tested Chesto Berry was pretty effective, more so than like leftovers or anything. So I can kind of just use it as like a pivot or go hard into Rotom Wash every time, and then click Rest when necessary when forcing him out. Or if he stays in on a sack, he'll Volt Switch, and I'll still be relatively healthy and not burned anymore. So next mon, Hisuian Samurott, pretty basic, just Choice Scarf, Razor Shell. I needed Razor Shell because a certain calc allowed me to two-shot Meowscarada with Razor Shell if I got a defense drop, especially after hazards. It allowed me to kind of plow through Forges as well, so the 50% chance to lower defense was pretty useful off Razor Shell compared to Aqua Cutter. And then Ceaseless Edge, mainly I bring this in to revenge Dragapult, and I can click Ceaseless Edge pretty easily and set up spikes, so that's going to be pretty good for me. And then obviously I mentioned the Sneasler being a threat, so we got Sucker Punch and Aqua Jet for both Terra Ghost and Terra Ground if we need to pick it off at any point, and then even Sucker Punch for like a Dragon Dance Dragapult. But yeah, simple as that. Has enough speed to outspeed Pult, I believe, with the Scarf. I think that's mainly it. Just outspeed Pult with Scarf. The rest an attack, and then I have enough Spadef to not be two-shot by Modest Spec Shadow Ball from Dragapult after Rocks. So that's mainly that spread. Moving on, we have Annihilate. Leftovers, just essentially max defense with Impish, Rage Fist, Brick Break, U-Turn, and Stealth Rocks. This set was always what I planned to have. It just kind of pivots into Iron Treads for me. It's my best pivot into Iron Treads. I can use it to pivot into Meowscarada if it's like Scarfed, if it's like locked into kind of some bad clicks. I figured if it was Scarf though, it would probably lock itself into U-Turn or Knockoff or Play Rough. One of those moves. But yeah, if I keep pivoting into Treads, if he like Volt switches or he clicks Earthquake or he tries to spin or whatever, Ice Spinner, I figured I'll be racking up Rage Fist. I don't really need offensive investment. I don't need setup. I can just Rage Fist. It'll do a lot of damage after compounding. I don't have to click a fighting move versus Treads. And it gives me a better neutral click versus like Rotom-Wash, Florges. Meowscarada doesn't really want to switch into that either. So, because these are the 6 I expect. You know, the top 3, Wash, Florges, Meowscarada. There could be a scenario where Talonflame comes, but I don't expect it really. The Dunsparce I don't expect really. I have double fighting, like a Ghost type, Steel. Like it's hard for him. And then Spidops, I was actually afraid of him being like webs. So you'll see I actually made an adjustment later because of webs. But yeah, if he does bring webs, this is one of my Defiant users, so that can actually I can punish him pretty hard with that. And then U-Turn for pivoting, and then Stealth Rocks because I wanted Rocks, and I didn't have Screamtail in the build anymore, so I definitely needed Rocks on this, as it's one of my only other rockers outside of Screamtail. And then Brick Break. I originally had Drain Punch for healing, but I never found myself clicking Drain Punch really, and it wasn't really necessary over like Rage Fist, so I packed Brick Break. It's still a neutral hit. It does the same amount of damage to like Iron Treads, but it breaks screens, which is important because if Wash did bring screens, I could utilize, I could bring in Ape versus Treads, and I can click Brick break the screens as he comes in, and obviously I'll get the more powerful hit out of it. But yeah, that's basically Ape. After that, we have Iron Hands. This is my primary Terra Sneasler response. Essentially just max defense. It had a little bit less HP, but I added it in last minute to kind of cover, I believe, like banded calcs. It also kind of covers Terra Ground as well, so you can't kill me after like Stealth Rocks and stuff. So very unique set. I originally had this as Heavy Slam, Iron Defense, Rest Talk with Covert Cloak, but I changed it to 2 attacks. So I have Body Press, because it's stab and it does a lot of damage, because I found myself when utilizing sequences that it was pretty passive versus Treads and Wash, and the reason I want Heavy Slam is it's actually a really good neutral into Sneasler, Pult, Meowscarada, and Florges. It does a lot of damage to Florges. It does over 50% to Sneasler, 50% to Pult, 50% to Meowscarada, so I was fine with getting that chip damage, especially if hazards were up. I got Iron Defense if he happens to be I guess like the SD set, and he's trying to hit me with Dire Claw, which is why I have Covert Cloak. And through my testing, I actually learned Covert Cloak blocks not only Dire Claw, but Poison Touch, the ability itself. So Poison Touch would not activate with Covert Cloak, unless I was just extremely lucky. But I'm pretty sure it blocks all secondary effects that could happen from the move. So we have that. And then Whirlwind was specifically if he was set up and I needed to Whirlwind him out, and he had already like removed the item or he had shown the item. But again, the things I were most afraid of were Citrus Berry, because there's no indicator for that item unless it gets below 50%, which hazards would help reveal. Because if I attacked into him and he was like bulk up, for example, he would be able to take the hit very well and he could just set up. And then obviously Iron Defense works in tandem with Body Press as well. So if I needed to use that versus Sneasler, if he was Terra Ground, I could do that. Obviously Heavy Slam was the best neutral into him. And then Whirlwind, Whirlwind was for certain setups, but yeah, that's mainly Iron Hands. Just my main pivot to Sneasler. I would go hard Iron Hands every time, and I would never bring it in versus anything else until Sneasler came in. Next, we have Braviary. This is just a bulky Braviary, 176 HP, 164 defense with Impish, and 168 Spadef. Originally, this was very Spadef to take 2 Draco hits from Dragapult, I think from like Specs or something, but I learned if he by like kind of using the sequences, that if he does take the -2 drop, I can pivot into my last one here, Rev of Room. So I changed it to more defensive, so I don't get 2-shot by Adamant Dragon Darts, in case he was Dragon Dance. So Adamant Dragon Darts max attack does not 2-shot this Braviary, which is good. So we have Brave Bird, U-turn, just the standard. I didn't feel like I needed to hit Treads too hard or like Wash, because I can just U-turn and get my Lecky in, or versus Treads I could get my Annihilate Bin or my Samurott. So didn't really need to do anything special there. So, and then as you can see, we have Roost, and then we have Defog. So originally I did have Close Combat for Treads, and then through sequences I kind of figured out I didn't really need any other move on Braviary, so I end up packing Defiant on it in case he does run Defog, Talonflame. But another positive thing that it utilizes the Defiant is if I could use it as my Florges pivot as well. And Florges Moonblast has a 30% chance to lower special attack, which would activate my attack, which makes the Brave Birds and U-turns just far more dangerous for him to pivot into. So you might have to sack the Florges in the process. But I ultimately packed Defog on it over Close Combat. Defog was mainly there because I was really scared of webs. He's brought Spide Ops before. I don't think this Mon is very good into my team, but in the case he wanted to bring it, I packed Defog, and then I could reset the hazard setting if necessary. So yeah, that's mainly Braviary. It's my main first pivot to Pult, to scout out what he clicks. If he clicks U-turn, whatever. If he's like choiced, I'll know from the Draco hit. And if he locks Shadow Ball, or if he clicks like Fire Blast, like Specs Fire Blast, it was like a roll in my favor to not get 2-shot. But again, I could pivot and go like Samurott afterwards if necessary, since I have the Spadef investment to take Specs hits. And yeah, if he does click Draco Meteor, I can go into this last Mon here, which is my Rev of Room. So Rev of Room, making its what is this? Its third game, second game? I don't remember. I think third game, because it came last week, but it didn't hit the field, and then it swept week 3. So yeah, it's back again. It should be able to do work. I was seeing how hard it was to pivot into Florges. Braviary can obviously do some things, but if he keeps clicking Baton Pass and getting in Pult and Sneasler, if he was banded or something, then it became really annoying. So I used Rev as my pivot to Florges for the first time, because I should be able to take any one hit, and as you can see, I have a decent amount of Spadef investment, as well as like speed and adamant with attack. But the SpDef investment makes it so I do not get one shot from full by modest specs Fire Blast from Dragapult. So I can also take the Shadow Balls, does like 60 to 70%, so we should be okay in that department as well. But we're rocking Gunk Shot, Bulldoze, Magnet Rise, and Shift Gear. So this Mon used to not be on the build, it was Screamtail. But then the more I looked at it, I found it really tough to pivot into Florges, and I needed some kind of win con to help me win the game, because before I was trying to just basically win the Hazard Chip game and use Samurott and Regieleki in the end game. I decided I wanted a more win con based strat, so I went with Revavroom here. But this set's actually really good. Gunk is good, it hits everything. Everything. Even Sneasler, even Polt, hits everything. Outside of Treads, which we can Magnet Rise on after we shift gears. So say like we bring it in versus Florges, he goes hard Treads. As I click shift gear, I'm now faster than Treads. I can click Magnet Rise, he cannot Earthquake me, and I can shift gear again, or I can now Bulldoze, for example. I can click Bulldoze, I can click Gunk Shot, but I can Bulldoze the Treads, and I know he's going to be bulky, but any chip on this just helps Aleki long term, so I'm fine with that. So yeah, this is the set. It mainly abuses Florges as a pivot, and if he's clicking Passive Wish, I can abuse the Treads mainly with Magnet Rise, and then everything else doesn't really want to take that chip, because like Rotom Wash, I can click Gunk Shot, Polt, I can click Bulldoze into, depending on his bulk, I can Bulldoze him and then Gunk Shot him after. And then Sneasler, the reason I like Bulldoze as well is for Sneasler, if he's some item like Citrus Berry or even like like Citrus Berry, or like what is the other one? The Wider for like close combat, and that's how he's activating his Unburden, then Bulldoze would actually lower his speed, so +2 Rev would still outspeed a -1 Unburden boosted Sneasler. And so would Samurott, so would Aleki. So, well, I think Aleki would not outspeed it. But, no, I think Aleki would outspeed it, because it'll hit like 408, 409 speed at -1 or something. And Revavroom was faster than that, because it's faster than Polt naturally. But yeah, that's mainly the team. So why don't we head into the match? All right, welcome back. We're at the replay here. As you can see, my team is the ones we see from the back: Regieleki, Samurott, Hisuian, Annihilate, Iron Hands, Braviary, and Revavroom. So this is actually Annihilate's debut and Braviary's debut. Obviously, Annihilate was picked up in free agency a couple weeks ago, and Braviary has been on the team since the inception of the drafting. So, 2 debuts here, and then obviously, who doesn't love that we're bringing Carr for a 3rd straight week? This one has had, I told you, it's going to have some good matchups, so we're going to utilize it here. But yeah, Techno did bring the exact 6 I thought: his Terra Sneasler, Treads, Polt, Florges, Meowscarada, and Rotom Wash. So I went through a lot of testing, but I found the most effective lead to be my Annihilate, so I ended up leading with that, as you can see. So why don't we just hop right into the match here. So I want to lead with Annihilate. The plan is basically kind of scout out and get chip damage on Rotom Wash, and his Florges, kind of scout out what his item is on Polt. Sneasler will be harder to scout, and then Meowscarada, obviously, it depends on what it wants to come in on. But as you can see, I take the Will-O-Wisp here as I go hard Aleki. I had the sequences kind of played out where I would U-turn with Annihilate versus like Florges versus Meowscarada. I could set up rocks, or I could scout by switching. If you led with like Treads, I would just click rocks. If you led with Polt, I would go Braviary. And if you led Rotom Wash, I would go hard into my Aleki, because this allowed me to get my Aleki in. I figured he would click Wisp, and he did bring it. So, yeah. So from there, I just wanted to Terra Blast. I wanted to see what his initial switch-in would be. I figured he would not want to go hard Treads, because if I make the read, I could just 2-shot him instantly. And so I figured Florges is probably likely his initial pivot to Aleki to kind of scout out what type I am. And obviously I'm grass, so I can hit Rotom Wash harder. It's still a neutral versus treads and Florges. But he ended up staying in, and he Volt Switches here. But I get a lot of damage on Rotom Wash here, and that's already good for me. So he ends up going Dragapult here. This made me think that he was Scarfed, so I didn't want to stay in and just take a U-turn for no reason. So I scout it and go Braviary, but he does in fact click U-turn. And so now he can bring in his Iron Treads. So this kind of makes me think he just wants to get up rocks. But I'm just going to go hard Ape. I don't want to stay in a U-turn, potentially get knocked off or something, but he does go for rocks here. Now this is my chance to go for Stealth Rocks. As he brings in his Florges. Like I said, I'm just going to click U-turn at this point in time. I click U-turn, and I can go hard River Broom. And now with rocks up, I can immediately put pressure. Rotom Wash is already weakened, which is what I needed for +1 Gunk Shot to be able to hit him. But he clicks Wish there, so I'm not entirely sure if he's going to go Rotom Wash or Treads, but I figure because of my Gunk Shot potential, like the clicking of Gunk Shot is really good here. He will not go Wash, he'll go Treads. So I actually click Shift Gear here, expecting him to go Treads. And that's exactly what he does. And now you're going to see we're just going to click Magnet Rise here. As he gets that Wish, doesn't matter to me. We click Magnet Rise as he clicks Earthquake here. And obviously that doesn't do a whole lot. It does 0, in fact. But he ends up going Rotom Wash as I end up going for another Shift Gear. I debated just going for Bulldoze in case he went like hard Pult. But again, he has no idea what my last move is. So I could still have Iron Head. And I'm just going to use that as a way to hit Treads. So he obviously didn't want to take damage, but he didn't want to scout it. So he just sacks Wash here. And I figure he's going to go for like a Will-O-Wisp or something. So I just go for the kill here and pray I don't miss my Gunk Shot. He reveals Leftovers. But yeah, I Gunk Shot him, land it. And at this point, I figure he's probably like, he either goes Sneasler and he's like Banded or something, or I mean, I'm +4 at this point, speed-wise, so Meowscarada can die. Rocks are up for that. I outspeed Scarf now since I'm +4. I kill Florges. Treads I can still hit with Bulldoze, but I figure Pult might have to come in, so I don't know if it's Scarfed or not, or he bluffed it versus Alecki and just figured he could take a hit or whatever. So I figure his only Mon to go into is Pult, and if he is Specs, I can live the Fire Blast, and if he is Will-O-Wisp, then that'll be mildly annoying, but not the end of the world. I can still use it to pressure Florges and the like. So he ends up going Pult here, and any damage is good here. I debated clicking Gunk Shot. It does more, but I didn't want to miss. So I went for Bulldoze here, and that would allow me to get guaranteed chip on him, so I can click Gunk Shot afterwards. But I feel like I was in a position maybe where I played it a little too safe. I feel like maybe I could have just clicked Gunk Shot, because if I get that damage guaranteed, whatever, especially if I poison him, he might be in Rocks range, so like Pult is just completely out of commission. Because if I click Gunk Shot, then I can click Bulldoze, and that means he has no switching at all. Because now he's in a position where he's seen my Bulldoze, lowers his speed, so he's obviously Infiltrator. He clicks Shadow Ball there instead of Fire Blast, so we live that, get some Black Sludge recovery, gets a Spadef drop. Not too much the end of the world here, but yeah, the reason I say that is because I realized I was in a position, well, he can actually go Treads here on my Gunk Shot, since he knows that's the other move I have, and I have to go for that. While if I had clicked Gunk Shot, he would have had to sack this, or he had to go into like something else as I clicked Bulldoze and then Gunk Shot as the Treads come in or something. So unfortunately, I play it safe twice, and I click Gunk Shot. He goes Treads here, and as you can see now, the Magnet Rise is going to run off, and we are at, I believe, yeah, we're at 47% at this point. And at this point, I kind of want to save it because switching into Florges becomes a little bit more annoying, especially around Meowscarada if he's like Choice Lock. And otherwise, I don't really have a way to pressure Florges, especially at Helmet 1. Especially since Ape hasn't really taken any damage yet, so I can't Rage Fist yet. Alecki can only do so much. But I figured because I have Magnet Rise, he's not going to click Earthquake. I figure he might click Knockoff or something. And I want Chip on this to kind of just force progress. I could have went hard like Annihilate here to play it safe. I didn't really need to be greedy here, but I figured he will not click Earthquake, so he's either going to click like Knockoff, Ice Spinner, or something. I mean, he went into this, so I assume he has to click Knockoff or something to get rid of my Black Sludge. So I end up just going for the damage here, and as you can see, I do 68%. That's in range of Regieleki, Terra Blast, so that's good for me. I have no idea what his item is, but he actually ends up going for Spin. So Ape had been my pivot every time, and I could play it safe every time versus Treads, which I had done in testing, but I ended up going for Spin, which is not the best for me because it's really hard to get up rocks again, unless Treads is in. But he removes it, and he ends up not showing leftovers, so I have no idea what his item is. But yeah, I basically just take the kill here, and actually I want to see real quick how much his Rapid Spin did to me. Did 9%, but yeah, we kill him there, and now we're at around 50%, 51. That's basically 50, but he goes Meowscarada here, so the fact that he went for Spin, it made me think he was Sash, and that's why he had it, and I'm like, well, then why didn't he lead with it if he was Sash? Because it would feel weird for that to be the case. So I was like, well, what can he kill me here with anything? So I looked at if he was like Sash, and Knockoff can potentially kill, I believe. So I was like, well, I kind of want to keep it around. Like I said, I made the risky play versus Treads because I wanted the chip, but since it's gone, I can still save this and I can pressure Forges because at that point, Gunk Shot is just free. I don't have to set up again. I can get the chip on Pult. I can potentially poison him, kill Meowscarada. Sneasler would be fearing if I click Bulldoze and stuff like that. So I figured I can just save it. And then I calc Choice Banded. I went to the calc. Choice Banded Sucker Punch does like 50 to 59. So I'm actually in range of Sucker Punch. So I'm like, I definitely don't want to stand because it could be Sash and I don't want to lose this. And then it could also be Banded. So I was heavily considering, okay, he's probably going to click like Sucker Punch or Knockoff. So I was actually going to go into my Braviary or my Annihilate. I didn't necessarily need Annihilate anymore since he didn't have Treads anymore. So I was considering just going Annihilate because then I could potentially get a Brox again, which would be better long term. And if he is like Knockoff, for example, like Sash, then he's not going to like two-shot me. He's not going to lock himself into play rough here. So I'm going to click Annihilate, and unfortunately, my hand was hovering above the trackpad, and it pains me because I had all the momentum in the world, literally all the momentum in the world, and I knew this game would be significantly more difficult without Revivroom because I have no way to punish the Wish Florges anymore. So I knew I had to keep it. So I came out of the calc, and I had hovered down to Annihilate, but I get shaky hands during matches, which is the reason why I always try to use a mouse. But it was just sitting over the keyboard, and I struck a move. And as you can see, I actually end up staying in. I don't know what move it clicked. It must have clicked one of Bulldoze or Gunk Shot since it's one of the first two moves. And I knew Annihilate was in one of the slots. So, yeah, we died of Sucker Punch, which is really unfortunate because that reveals to me he's banded. So at least I get information out of it. But I meant to go Annihilate, and so we just lose Revivroom for no reason. And now this game is significantly harder, and it pained me because I'm like, man, I really don't think I was in a position of losing. Like, I had everything under control. I still had hands for Sneasler. Pult was weakened. I could have punished Forges every time with Revivroom. was at 50%. And then Meowscarada, I feel like I said, if it's banded, then I can still contain it, like Alecki plus like Samurott and like Annihilate and Braviary. So I end up going Braviary here, and the reason I do that is I can one, pressure him out with U-turn, or I can click Defog here and remove the rock. So he goes Forges here as I click. I believe. Oh, I click Brave Bird. My bad. But yeah, I guess I get chip damage on this. Obviously, I can't punish this. It's there's no way for me to punish it anymore. But yeah, I click Defog as he clicks Wish, and he clicks Moonblast here. A bit risky from him. I don't think he ever considered Defiant at all, so I figured that's probably why he just clicked it. But if I got the +2, he was sacking something the turn after, because Brave Bird was just going to kill something. But yeah, I click Roost here as he clicks Wish. Obviously, I don't want him to pass it, but he could just click Baton Pass or something. So I click Brave Bird here, and as you can see, it does a lot of chip damage as clicks Baton Pass, and he's going to bring it into his Pult. And now this Pult is healthy again, which is really annoying for me. But as you can see, actually, that only healed like 47%. And Florges is definitely max HP, so it tells me this Pult has a lot of HP investment. I did not catch this in the actual game. This was after the game, me analyzing this, but yeah, that only did 40% healing. I knew it was semi-bulky-ish because the Bulldoze didn't do a whole lot, so I figured he had some investment, but like, yeah, that definitely showed me he had HP investment. So, yeah, I can't switch around Draco Meteor anymore, and I don't have Revivroom to set up on this to punish a -2 Dragapult anymore. So, yeah. So I just sack it, I die, and then I bring in Samurott here because I need to start getting enough spikes, which I probably should have done. I probably should have clicked Ceaseless Edge here, but like I said, Floor just comes in. I no longer have Braviary to pivot into Moonblast, which he can just freely spam into the rest of my team. So I actually have to make a hard read that he's going to go Florges and refuse to get up spikes. So I go for Razor Shell here, just so I can actually hit the Florges and two-shot him. As you can see, I click Razor Shell there, and I'm going to take him out in 2. But unfortunately, I take a lot of chip, and I don't have my spikes up. So there's no hazards up at all, which has been the focal point of my game plan, was to get up spikes and rocks, allow that to chip down Pult, Sneasler, and Meowscarada, which now Meowscarada is not taking any chip, which is really bad for Regieleki here. So he probably just assumes I'm Scarfed since I brought it in versus Pult, and then I clicked Razor Shell hard versus Florges. I expect him to click Play Rough here, so I go hard Annihilate here, but he ends up clicking U-turn, so works out for me. Now I get a Rage Fist boost, but again, I expect him to go Pult here and just click like Shadow Ball, but he probably, I mean, he knows I'm not choice locked, so but now he's using this as a way to probably set up with Sneasler. So I get leftovers, but I go hard hands here. I have to, as he clicks Swords Dance. So I have no idea what his item is. Like I said, I'm afraid of him being like Citrus Berry. Best case scenario, he is the Wider, and I can Whirlwind him right here. But yeah, so I end up clicking the Whirlwind here. He does reveal Terra Ground, so that's good to know. And I click Whirlwind here, so I remove him. Obviously now I'm weakened, so I don't really have another check to Sneasler anymore, but at least I know he doesn't have the Unburden boost activated yet, so I can Razor Shell him. So Razor Shell's looking pretty decent still here. And Alecki can also Terra Blast him because he's not boosted anymore. He's not boosted yet, so Terra Blast is pretty good as well. But he ends up going Meowscarada. I figured he's just going to lock himself into Play Rough, but he goes for the move that doesn't miss. So I basically am forced to go into one of Ape or Regieleki here. And if I go Alecki, I don't really hit him anyways, so he could just stay in and Flower Trick. So I'm kind of just forced to go into Annihilate here. And so that's what I do. Now, I could click Rage Fist, which would give me a lot of chip damage versus like Sneasler. Pult, he can't bring it in as well. So I figure he might just stay in. Again, I have no idea what the Sneasler's item is. So in hindsight, I probably should have clicked Rage Fist here. That way I can hit Meowscarada. But like, again, he could have stayed in, and he's obviously choice banded based off the Sucker Punch damage to Rev and stuff. So this Flower Trick is actually doing a decent amount, and I will take a second hit from here, so my Rage Fist would be based 150. It doesn't kill Meowscarada. And at that point, it becomes kind of impossible. I can't even pivot Alecki after this, so it becomes really tough to kind of switch around his team, and he can go hard like Drag Bolt on Alecki every time. So this endgame is really precarious. I kind of have to get every play right, and I kind of have to hope he just doesn't play this optimally. So I actually end up going for U-turn. That way I can bring in Alecki and just revenge him that way. Or I can bring in Samurai and click Razor Shell or Ceaseless Edge. So I end up going for the U-turn here, as he actually goes hard Sneasler. So again, Rage Fist would have been better into this, but it was only base 100, so it wasn't like insanely strong. But I can live with U-turn. It's not going to put him into like some citrus range or something, and then I can just bring in Alecki or Samurai at this point. But I click U-turn, that's 26%, but he has red card, and yeah, that just forces me out into Samurai. So now his Sneasler has Unburden Boost, and I'm basically I would be forced to use Annihilate at that point, and he can just SD on me, and I can't really do anything about that. He can hit Alecki with Dire Claw. He probably has like close combat here, so, or like some fighting move to hit Samurai. So at this point, I'm thinking I've lost the game. I don't think I can win it at this point. So I just click Aqua Jet. That way I can get some chip damage on him. That way, like, Annihilate can just click Rage Fist and kill him. So I click Aqua Jet. I thought Red Card was a really weird item, but I guess it was for like Revavroom or any type of setup he was using. So maybe he has like Endure on it as his last move, but like I thought it made sense for him to be like Dire Claw, Terra Blast, and then maybe Endure or Fighting Move. So I click Aqua Jet, does like 53%. Again, Rage Fist, and then if into an Aqua Jet would have killed this anyways. But he clicks Dire Claw, so he doesn't have a fighting move, and he doesn't status me at all. So pretty fortunate there. I didn't know if he was going to save it or not, but I kind of wanted to go Ape, but I had no idea what he wanted to go into, if he wanted to like double into like Pult or Meowscarada, because if he doubled into Pult on my Ape, then I was screwed anyway. So I just stayed in like Aqua Jet. But yeah, I want to save this because now if I can get some level of chip on Meowscarada, I could potentially win with Ceaseless Edge. And then I quickly realized, since I took that hit, I'm in Sucker Punch range, so it's looking like an impossible endgame for me. So I just sack Regieleki here, and again, all of this came from the bad click. But yeah, he locks himself into Flower Trick, as you can see that just one-shots Alecki because he's banded. All because of that trackpad misclick with my Rivavroom. I lost it, had no pressure on that Florges, which meant I had to sack Braviary. He got to heal up his Pult. It was just really unfortunate. And again, I was going to go Ape on this Meowscarada and or Braviary. I think I was going to go Annihilate though at that point. And man, it's just really unfortunate. But I sack Alecki there. I figure I kind of just have to go Ape here, click U-turn, or Rage Fist, whatever it be. But he ends up going Sneasler here as I clicked U-turn. I figured, again, Flower Trick doesn't kill me, and again, Rage Fist at base 150 power does not kill Meowscarada at this point. So I guess what I could have done was potentially tried to play it for a Sucker Punch endgame, because I knew he had no other moves on Meowscarada, but if he didn't sack Sneasler, then he could just Swords Dance my Sucker Punches, so I just clicked U-turn. Now I can bring in my Samurott here, and I know he can't go Pult, because I know he's Specs, but I know he's bulky, so I have no idea if my Ceaseless Edge even kills at this point. But it's probably a roll, and then because he's not at max HP, and then Meowscarada probably has to come in here, which it does. I figured his best play would actually be to go hard Dragapult here, because if I go for like X Scissor as he clicks like Play Rough or something, I kill him. If I want to double into Annihilate on him clicking Sucker Punch, then he's in a horrible position because now I can click Rage Fist as his Dragapult comes in. It would still be a stab base 100 super effective Rage Fist, so it would still kill Dragapult or close to it. And then, but yeah, he was not in a good position at this point if he stayed in. Now, I have no idea if he's going to make that really great mid-ground play into Dragapult. He had been making... he really didn't have to make a lot of reads. His team was just facilitating that. His speed was overwhelming. Losing Rev just lacked me any sort of speed pressure versus him. So I was basically just playing with Scarf, which had a horrible lock into Meowscarada. So I figured if he was to make the best play, he would go Dragapult here, scouting X Scissor, and it would also scout me going hard Annihilate on a Sucker Punch. So unfortunately, I don't even have X Scissor. So yeah. So I actually I try to play the Sucker Punch middle ground and just go hard Annihilate. The other middle ground would have just been to hard Ceaseless Edge, because if I did kill Pult or I did enough damage, I put up a Spike. So if he did switch out, his Pult was going to die to whatever hit. But if he clicked Play Rough killed Annihilate from that range, or was like a roll, or I just had to pray he missed or something. But even then, I wouldn't have been able to get the chip with Rage Fist damage. So it was looking pretty dire. But I think I had a Ceaseless Edge here would have been the better middle ground play for me. But I end up doubling to Annihilate for the Sucker Punch, and he doubles the Pult, like I said he should do. But yeah, that's just GG. So he basically got the right middle ground. If I had Ceaseless Edged, either I killed this or I put it in range of spikes, and then I could just Ceaseless Edge again. And then if he sacked it, I have 2 spikes up. Meowscarada is going to be at 70%. He probably would have had to lock into Play Rough if he had it. I assume he had it. And then I just pray I live somehow, or he misses. I like Rage Fist, crit him or something. Again, it wasn't like a easy... I really didn't expect to be able to win this endgame, but I knew that I could force some type of like 50-50 play and hope he just didn't do the right play. He made the right play in my opinion. I did not make capitalize on him making the right play, mainly because I was going off a choke, and he did not choke. So fortunately, he gets Shadow Balled there. Ceaseless Edge does in fact not kill. Yeah, we lose 2-0 to Techno. I think he played the end game perfectly, as given my blunder here with Revavroom, obviously not intentional on my end, but after that he capitalized on the opportunity and he hit a home run. He got the win. This loss definitely stung me for a while. It's kind of the reason why I was away from Mons, because I put a lot of effort into this build, and I felt like I had commanding control in the beginning of the game. And that one trackpad misclick just lost me the game, in my opinion. I don't think I could have won this game unless he choked. He had too many pieces in the end with Sneasler, Pult, and Meowscarada, and like Sneasler's Enigma, I have no idea what set it was going to be, so I kind of just had to play in a very rough, predictive endgame. I I got a viewer's perspective from this match. They said it was a really good match. For me, I was playing as if I was losing the whole time, and so I kind of just didn't. I was just hoping he choked, but he played it phenomenally, and he made the right mid-ground play at the end, right there at the end, doubling into Pult to scout the X Scissor and also cover me doubling on the Sucker Punch. So shout out to Techno. That was a great read there to win yourself the game. But now, unfortunately, we are now 3-2, but it stings, obviously, but I'm kind of over it now. It's been like more than a week at this point since that game, but it definitely stings to lose in that way. But the fact that I was able to fight back and put myself in a position at the end to 50 is encouraging, at the very least. It just took a better sequences of plays from my opponent to pull that out there. But yeah, hopefully next week we can come out on top. We have a difficult schedule at the end here with some very strong offensive mons. Like I think we've played Terra Moth a couple times, some Zamazentas, and a Spathra, which is going to be really annoying. And I know Carmine has the luck of the Irish on his side, so we're going to have to overcome not just the Spathra, but some RNG probably. So we'll do our best to try to make our push towards the playoffs. I'll probably cover some like playoff scenarios and kind of recap kind of what the season has been like for not just me, but for everyone in the league. The standings, kind of see like who we got to beat to confirm playoffs and stuff like that. But if we lose this next week, then we're in a pretty rough spot. Obviously, we'll be 3-3, but I'd much rather be 4-2 moving forward. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. It was a much quicker video this time, but yeah, I'm gonna try to expedite them moving forward, as talking for that long, especially last week when it was an hour and a half, that was too long. So but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys for week 6.